Guys, I want to give you something that is a personal favorite, one of my favorite platforms all the way around. Many times I have people ask me, hey, what would you build if you were to build something all over again? Or what would you really recommend as a platform? And time again, I come back to the same platform. It's just a sleek, it's sexy, it's geared well, it's lightweight, it's not crazy technology, it's reliable, and that is the C6 Z06. This one right here is going to be a setup that we're gonna kind of walk you guys through. Kind of the goal on this is gonna be about 600 wheel horsepower. We're kind of throwing everything at it. This one's partly torn down. Well, it's actually totally torn down right now. This is a pretty virgin car. This thing's only got about 4,000 miles on it. We getting ready to do just about everything to it. So we're gonna do heads, cam, intake manifold, E85, headers, and possibly some other stuff a little bit more in the future. So we're gonna use our BTR. This is gonna be a pretty nice all-around setup right there. So that's a 113, 237, 250 camshaft. That thing is going to make some noise. It's gonna be pretty rowdy. It's gonna have a nice potato camshaft. That thing is really gonna have a nice cadence to it. It's gonna be an all-around fantastic driving car. So this is very much like the build that I had done for my buddy Keith up there in Keith's Pit Stop. Many of you guys have seen some videos of where I dyno up there, or other guys have used his dyno. We actually set up his car. His car made right around 620 on a budget setup. Each car dynos a little bit differently. This car's got a different wheel and tire combination, and really the car is very much virgin. Oftentimes people want to look at the C7 platform, which is a fantastic platform, but this thing is light. This is actually an 06 Z06, and this is the lightest of all of them. So this car should be sub 3,100 pounds. With a C6 Z06s, they're geared really aggressively, such that first gear is about 60 miles an hour, second gear is about 90, third about 125, and fourth is about 155 miles an hour. All right, so we're gonna do an ATI underdrive pulley. We're gonna do a custom cold air, porting intake manifold. We're gonna raise the compression ratio to about 12:1 on this car. I really like to bump the compression ratio up because essentially that's free power. Pretty much all the way from idle, all the way up to red line. That is gonna optimize the motor a lot more than what it was. We're also going to change the fuel injector so that we can run a flex fuel sensor on it. We can support the power of higher concentrations of E85. So we're not changing the fuel pump or anything. This is an absolute still best bang for the dollar package here. There was a number of things that we splurged on in order to make that number, but the customer wants to pretty much be able to run 10.099 naturally aspirated. And then if we do anything else to it in the future, we can build upon that. Now, I had one of these cars and it was still my favorite car that I've ever owned. And I've had a C4, C5, C6, two C7s, and my C7 Z06 was the fastest car that I ever owned. But this car still has a special place in my heart. That's the one right there, man. I absolutely love that thing. That was an 07 Z06. Had a really great stance. I really set it up good for road course. It was an awesome all-around car. I ideally drove that car for about 1.5 years. Put about 30,000 miles on it. It was still just the top car I've ever owned. So we're hoping this thing revs out to about 6,600 or so. And like I said, we're shooting for that target of about 600 wheel horsepower and somewhere in the neighborhood of about 530 pound-feet of torque. That should be able to get the job done and hopefully be able to get that, you know, right about that 10.0, somewhere about 137 to 140 miles an hour. Now guys, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love some forced induction. I love turbo, I love supercharger, I love positive displacement supercharger. I love it all, okay? That's like different flavors. Definitely love it all, but I'm here to tell you right now, naturally aspirated has its place, and it is amazing when it's done really well. The thing about naturally aspirated is it doesn't really heat up. You don't lose power as you're pulling gears. You don't have belt slippage. You don't have any lag. The average power over time, naturally aspirated, is very tough to beat. The C6 Z06 is very aerodynamic, it's geared very well, it's lightweight, and it averages better overall power. So with that naturally aspirated setup, I'm here to tell you, this car might be an underdog, but it will outperform other things that have so much more power. Everything about this kit that we just ordered for this car, we ordered through Brian Tooley. So you can pretty much get the same exact setup that we have here and build the same exact power. So Brian Tooley has all sorts of GM gaskets that they have in-house that is under their branding and their spring kit, and they have a bunch more products coming up very soon. So Georgie, let's take a look at this trunnion kit we got here. That looks pretty good. There was a couple years that on the C6 Z06 that they were actually spitting out needle bearings in here, and this is definitely a step in the right direction. So this is not going to have any sort of problem. They're kind of locked in there with that C-clip deal. I'm not going to have any needle bearings getting out. and that should loosen up a little bit of friction on there. Yeah, I know I was talking all this noise about naturally aspirated, but I'm not just talking about naturally aspirated. I'm talking about the car, and I'm talking about a naturally aspirated setup. So you can do very, very well, not just with this platform of the car or naturally aspirated, but you can do well with this platform even if it isn't naturally aspirated. Now this one right here, this car right here, we have not finished dynoing it, but we're gonna go ahead and throw a couple pulls in there as I'm finishing up tuning it. That right there is a V7 YSI from A&A Corvette. That's a big Vortec head unit right there. I've done a very similar combination on this car, made about 1,050, and I tuned it up in Pennsylvania. One of my favorite top experiences on driving a car of all time. That car basically feels like a 1,400 horsepower other car. So that right there, I was trying to get full throttle at somewhere about, I think it was about 125 miles an hour, rolling into the throttle, and I couldn't even give the car full throttle. It was so silly fast. I was spinning the tires at 125 miles an hour with about 1,050 wheel horsepower, with pretty much the same setup as to what that tire is right there. That car went to the track and left at idle, and it went 10-2 at 162 miles an hour. 162. That's so stupid fast. 162 is good enough to go like 8.0 or even faster, possibly in the 7s. It's absolutely crazy mile an hour right there. Really indicating that thing is making some major steam up top. As for part of this combination, what we do is we typically will do a 5-angle valve job on the stock intake valve, and we're going to use a lightweight solid exhaust valve there. Those are pretty hogged out pretty good there. So those have been pretty well modified to flow a lot more air. We've milled these quite a bit, so these should be 55 thousandths off here so that we can really raise up that compression ratio pretty good. An integral part of making as much naturally aspirated power as possible is porting. And Georgie here, he's porting this guy up real good here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at these MSD atomic intake, and we have a lot of experience porting the stock intake manifolds. I mean, we've done literally thousands of them. We've done thousands of throttle bodies, and we've done hundreds upon hundreds of cylinder heads. So at Fasterproms, that is a major part of our business. That's what we do. If we have a car that comes in, we typically will port some sort of parts or components on it in order to optimize airflow. That is just what we do. We're optimize each and every component every way through. And on this particular build, that is gonna have to be what it's going to take in order to make over 600 wheel horsepower. So this started life as a 102 millimeter. We're gonna kind of open up the front there. There's not a lot of meat down in there, but really inside of it is the nice pretty part. So this thing is very much just like what we had on that 69 Camaro, except it's just an individual trumpet intake. So this thing really, really is quite nice. We still have to port this much of the runner on that side. So right now we're hitting this part and kind of bell mouthing that as much as possible, cleaning up any sort of restrictions whatsoever. And then we're going to do the final sanding on this. And that's what George is doing right now. We've seen sometimes with porting this somewhere between, say, about 6 to 9 wheel horsepower. Some of the fast manifolds we might get, say, 6 to 10 wheel horsepower, but this is what it's going to take. This intake manifold should pick up about another 15 at least over a stock ported intake manifold. We're hoping for possibly about 20. Here we go. So pretty much everything about this combination is going to be optimized. Everything from the cold air, we're going to modify something here so that we can get colder outside the engine bay air ducted in, and too much kind of causes humbling in the mass airflow sensor, so we'll address that. We're going to put down some insulation on the valley cover right here so less heat is transmitted from there to the bottom of the intake manifold. We've had a couple other guys that are in the AC industry check this, and they kind of independently tested it and said, hey man, that literally does keep about 100 degrees of heat from being transmitted to the other side of that intake manifold right there. So we're just going to cut a small little section right here, and it's probably about 1.5 inches by 9 inches or so, and we're going to very strategically cut a certain area. We don't want to go too hard, too deep, because we've got an oil cooler and our evaporator core on the other side. So this, once you put a fan on the front side of it, it pulls a lot of air. I think actually, George, you remember doing that, huh? Mm-hmm. Kind of felt it. It really does allow a lot of good cold air under hood, which is going to average a lot better intake air temperatures, and that of course is going to translate into a little bit more power. A lot of cars just get some really ugly, nasty, hot air underneath the hood, and this is one of those things where we kind of fix that. Pulled off our little section, and we now have good cold air coming up into where our filter is going to reside. Putting together our intake manifold over here, has an internal gasket there, and we're going to mount up our throttle body. Got to get all our hardware in there correctly. Keep up the great work and that great physique you're maintaining there.
Thank you. Your physique also looks nice.
That was an awkward exchange.
Are you trying to film my like midsection, or do you want my face in the shot? Because you're only getting my midsection right now.
I'm just failing today. It's like,
get out of here.
Get out of, just get out of here. All right, all right. Well, we got it back together. I really didn't do very much at all. I think I helped out a little bit with the intake manifold, but this is pretty much mostly George's baby. Got our MSD intake manifold all ported up, got our throttle body on there, got our 0-1 injectors and cooks, 1 7/8 inch headers, got our underdrive pulley. All of the pieces of the recipe are here to make big power. So got a good Canon air filter on there. We got a hole cut down in front. This thing should do very, very well. George, how about you crank it up here? Crank it up? Yeah. We'll go listen from the back here, and gotta get some oil in the lifters, and we'll check the oil pressure here. Let's check this out with our HB tuners here. There we go, we got about 60 pounds of oil pressure, burning off everything on the header, so you can tell this is our first time kind of cranking her up, getting her running. 97 degrees. That's a decent sized cam right there with that much vacuum. That's not a lot of vacuum at all. It's gonna be a beast. I love all the touches my buddy does with this car, man. Gonna get this old girl on the dyno. Can't wait to see what she makes. We got barely any 93 octane in here, and we're gonna run it as is here. Get this all tuned up, and then we're gonna throw the E85 in there. That was a little shorty. Little shorty pull, made 594, 542. Good job, Jordy. Yeah, buddy. 542 torque, and it's rich. Let's go hit it again. Let's see it. Let's rev this thing out. Man, that's freaking really encouraging, especially for our first couple pulls here. So we got a rich air fuel, we have low spark advance, first shakedown, don't even have enough oil temperature in the thing totally yet, and made 615.9 and 548 torque. That is a lot of torque for naturally aspirated. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, 427 cubic inches. If you're making 1 pound-foot of torque per cubic inch, that's pretty decent, and these do that pretty easily. But of course, when we crank up the compression ratio like we did, put a different intake manifold on it, hey, we're still on 93 octanes. That's super encouraging. I'm gonna tweak the air fuel map, throw a little bit of spark advance in there, throw a little bit of that on there, see what we can get, and I think this thing's gonna do really well. I mean, if we can make maybe 10 more on 93, and then maybe another 10 or 15 more on E, man, dude, I'm talking 141, 142 mile an hour trap speed car. That'd be bad bone on muscle. That would be sick, man. So we'll see what we can do. I'll keep you guys posted on what's going on, but it had a slightly rich air fuel, and I'm gonna work on that and try and get that squared away first. Hard to get up to 10 because they got a really good efficient cooler up front. Mess around and see if we can get some more power. Hell yeah, brother. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. 619 and 551, man. That's a small milestone. So I'm pleased that you guys are here to check this combination out, because this is going to be an absolutely butt-kicking combination. This thing's really going to roll well. That's a lot of power for NA. That's like what Super Nasty Vipers make and all that. And I mean, dude, we got a safe air fuel. We got yet to throw the 85 on it. I cannot emphasize enough. This car is barely 3,000 pounds. So this is like, and the gearing is so good. The aerodynamics are fantastic. It's going to be a much faster car than the power that it puts down. So this is like having a 850 wheel Camaro. It's a whole different ballgame. Trying for that 99 NA, man. That's what the owner wants. It's a 99 NA, and I'd like to see 140 mile an hour. So we're gonna do it.
That's a nice shirt you got there, by the way, pal. Can I see the back of that also?
Good. Let me tune something here. Hold on here. How's that?
That is fantastic.
So we kind of settled down at 617, 550. We're kind of holding, give or take, about 1 horsepower, 1 pound-foot of torque each pull. Seems very consistent, reliable. I've gone up in the spark advance. I've kind of, you know, gone up and down in the air fuel, found the happy spot. We're trying to make sure it's not going to spark knock. So this is our 93 tune. Now we're going to go to the 85, and we'll see what we can do with that. There's always proof that you don't know it all. So, moral of the story. Just when you think you got it figured out, try something else and couple little bits of horsepower come up. So, I went and ran this a little bit richer because I had a hunch that it might, you know, anytime I leaned it, we kind of lost some power. It's just a little bit weird. Certain combinations, certain engines, it almost seems like things that are particularly high compression respond that way. So, my Miata likes a really rich air fuel mixture. It just makes more power that way. This thing's the same way. So it was interesting to find out. We're gonna run it a little richer yet and see if we can make a little bit more power. So made 561 pound-feet of torque. That is stellar. I'd really like to see upper, almost 630 wheel horsepower. I don't think we're gonna do it, but we're gonna try. Lady saying 624, 564. That's pretty ripping right there, man. You know, like I said, you're always hoping for more. always. Let's take a look real quick here. So we're checking out our HP tuners. We got 95% duty cycle on our injectors. We actually ran it a lot richer than what I would normally run. We're running about 24 degrees of timing at the top there. We might do some adjustments with the push rods a little bit later. Try and see if we can make the peak power a little bit later if we can, but really beautiful looking curve, quite honestly. Got a little bit more timing down low, has little vacuum on this intake manifold, especially up in the higher RPMs. We're about 60% on our E85 concentration. Still a little bit more power to be had there, but what a great overall package. Super stoked with this. Look at that, 624 horsepower, 564 pound-feet of torque. It does seem to respond better on a back-to-back pull. That has to do with the oil temperature, and it has to do with exhaust temperature. So it helps scavenge a little bit better, and also the oil and all that is a little bit thinner as it gets hotter. So excellent all-around package. I'm super stoked to drive this thing. This is one of my favorite platforms, man. Just absolutely love this thing. Let's see what this 620 wheel NA power is all about. Feels like for a ride in that car just to kind of sell the packages on our C6 Z06 stuff. And you know, I'd have a customer come in and I'd take him for a ride, and they'd be like, dude, that's the fastest NA car I've ever been in, or you know, it's one of the fastest cars period I've ever been in. And I was like, thank you.
Oh yeah.
Be nice, right?
Good.
Yeah, we're just kind of hazing it a little bit there for that 4,000. Just a little bit. Like, it doesn't hit as hard as a supercharged car, but it just like keeps pulling. It keeps pulling. It keeps pulling. It keeps pulling. It's like, dang. All right, so let's check our drivability. Actually, our fuel map looks fantastic. So our fuel trims are very, very close. It's very, very important. We're trying to have a good drivability, so we need to make sure our fuel map is very well done. And it looks really, really good. We're give or take about, on average, about 2%. That's super nice and tight. Let's see something real quick here. Yeah, I just wanted to do a U-turn, but we ended up doing a donut, so see if we can get a first gear to hook here. So, guys, this has been a fun build. This is something that we're not necessarily looking for more work. We're kind of, you know, trying to concentrate a little bit more on our YouTube stuff, but this is just showing what we can do. We've been doing this kind of packages for years now, and stuff keeps getting a little bit better. You know, I mean, you got a little bit better parts here and there, and we even had some compromises, like we didn't put an electric water pump on it or other things that we could have done. It has a factory clutch, lots of little things that kind of could, would, and should make more power. But this car is an absolute monster. It will serve its purpose well. So Georgie, good job doing all the porting and the installation. I'm overall very, very pleased with the package. I think the customer is going to be very pleased with the package. It really makes me want to have my old one back, you know. Yeah. So I really like this car. This car's stronger than my car was. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We'll see you soon. Oh my, this is what it's like to be in the pack of 5 golds. Oh my God, I just got knocked over by Dory. Norman, come here. Norman, come here. Norman, I want to steal that from you. Come here.